For 200,000 years, humanity was a whisper on the wind. We were nomads, shadows moving across vast, empty landscapes. Our lives were a constant search for the next meal, following the herds, chasing the seasons. We owned nothing but the tools we could carry and the stories we told around the fire. Our world was a cycle of movement, an endless journey. Then, something shifted. About 12,000 years ago, the great ice sheets finally retreated, and the Earth settled into a long, warm spring. The climate, for the first time in millennia, stayed still. In a corner of the world we now call the Fertile Crescent, this stability created an explosion of life. Wild grasses, ancestors of modern wheat and barley, grew in dense, shimmering fields, stretching as far as the eye could see. It was a paradise of grain, a feast laid out by nature herself. A small band of hunters, our ancestors, stumbled upon this bounty. For generations, they had followed the food. But here, the food wasn't moving. It was rooted in the rich soil, waiting to be harvested. So they did something their ancestors never would have dreamed of. They stayed. The rhythm of their lives changed. The long walk ended. They learned to cut the stalks, to thresh the grain, to store it for the lean months. The temporary camps of mammoth bone and animal hide gave way to something new. They began to build. First with mud and reeds, then with stone. They dug foundations into the earth, creating the first permanent homes. They were no longer just passing through, they were putting down roots. This was the birth of the village. The end of the wander. But this new life, this golden trap of abundance, created a problem that had never existed before. For the first time, we had stuff. We had stores of grain, carefully guarded against hunger. We had land, specific plots that we had cleared and harvested. We had solid houses that took seasons to build. And for the first time in the long, silent story of our species, we had something to lose. The idea of mine was born, and with it, the fear of it being taken. In a small, wandering tribe of 20 or 30 people, disputes were simple. Everyone was family. You knew each other's histories, each other's quirks. If someone took your spear, you'd talk it out. You'd argue, you'd gossip, maybe you'd even trade a few insults. But it rarely escalated. Social pressure, the need for everyone to cooperate to survive, kept things in check. There was no need for a boss, a judge, or a police force. The group was its own regulator. But in a village of 300, everything is different. You don't know everyone. You have neighbors who are essentially strangers. And now, there are things worth fighting over. A boundary line between two family plots. A stolen sack of grain that represents a winter's worth of security. These small arguments, once settled around a campfire, now had the potential to ignite the entire community. Tensions simmered. Accusations flew. Arguments turned into brawls, and brawls could easily spill into blood feuds, threatening to tear the fragile new society apart. Imagine the scene, a dusty clearing in the center of the village. Two families are screaming at each other, brandishing farming tools like weapons. A crowd gathers, taking sides, shouting, adding fuel to the fire. It's chaos. The very order that allowed this village to exist is on the verge of collapse. They needed a solution. They needed a way to stop the bleeding. And then, a figure steps into the center of the mayhem. He isn't the strongest, or the oldest. But there's a calmness about him. He speaks, and his voice cuts through the noise. The crowd, desperate for a resolution, goes quiet. He listens to both sides. He weighs the arguments. And then he makes a decision. He points to a line in the dirt and declares it the boundary. He orders the grain returned, and incredibly, both sides obey. The tension breaks. The crowd disperses. The crisis is over. This is the moment. This is the pivot on which our future turned. We didn't choose this man because he was a god, or descended from heroes. We chose him because he was useful. He solved a problem that no one else could. This is the archetype of the big man, the first leader. He was the adjudicator, the peacemaker. In that moment, we made a crucial trade. We gave one person power over the rest of us. We gave him the power to decide who was right and who was wrong. We willingly, consciously, traded a piece of our individual freedom, our raw equality, for the promise of order. A leader chosen for his skill is a powerful tool. But what happens when that leader dies? Or when someone stronger, or more persuasive, challenges his decisions? Human authority is fragile. To make it last, to keep the new social order from collapsing back into chaos, we needed something bigger than just a man. We needed an authority that couldn't be questioned, couldn't be argued with. We needed a god. Or, more accurately, we needed to believe the leader spoke for one. Look to the hills of modern-day Turkey, to a place called Göbekli Tepe. It's the oldest temple in the world, built 11,000 years ago by people who were just beginning to settle down. Massive T-shaped stone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, are arranged in circles. They are carved with terrifying images of scorpions, lions, and vultures. This wasn't a home, this was a place of power, a place to meet the cosmos. And this is where the big man became the priest king. The logic was simple and brilliant. The leader began to say, "I don't make the rules. The sun makes the rules. The great spirit of the sky makes the rules. I'm just the one who can understand them. I just speak for them." He would stand at the top of a stone altar, maybe draped in the skin of a fearsome leopard, and point to the stars, interpreting their movements as divine commands. The people, looking up in awe and fear, would bow. This was the birth of organized religion as a tool of social control. The leader's judgment was no longer just a good idea, it was a sacred decree. If you disobeyed the leader, you weren't just breaking a community rule, you were offending the universe itself. This ingenious shift cemented power in a way no single person ever could. Power was no longer a temporary choice made by the community, it was a divine right, handed down from the heavens. The first politician had found his ultimate justification. From that first village, the model exploded across the globe. The big man who settled fights over grain became the king who commanded armies and collected taxes from an entire empire. The stone altar at Göbekli Tepe became the ziggurat of Sumeria, the pyramid of Egypt, the temple in Rome. The title changed, the costume changed, but the fundamental idea remained the same. The divine right was replaced by the will of the people, or the mandate of an ideology, but the core function is eerily similar. But the seed of their power, the very concept that one person should stand above the rest to impose order, was planted in that first Neolithic village. It was a bargain we made at the dawn of civilization. For hundreds of thousands of years, the story of humanity was ephemeral, written in footprints that the rain would wash away. Our history was silence. But with the village, the leader, and the god, came the need for something more. How do you keep track of who paid their share of grain to the temple? How do you record the laws handed down from the leader? Imagine a hand pressing a sharpened reed into a soft tablet of wet clay. It's not a grand poem or a heroic epic. It's a list. A list of names. A list of how many jars of beer or sacks of wheat each person owes. It is the world's first spreadsheet. The first written words were not about love or philosophy. They were about taxes and administration. They were about control. The silence is over. With these first scratches in clay, we have recorded our names, our gods, and our masters. The unremembered eons of prehistory have finally ended. History, with all its glories and its tragedies, has begun. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into our past, please like, subscribe, and join us for the next episode.